Discover the incredible journey of unexpected love. 9 months later, an amazing giant emerged. Emma wiped her greasy hands on her already stained coveralls, glancing out the rain-speckled window of the garage. The rhythmic drumming of droplets felt as relentless as the bills piling up on the kitchen counter. Business was shaky, and she had poured every ounce of her energy into keeping the shop alive while raising Lucy, who was oblivious to their precarious financial state. But community whispers stung. A woman mechanic was still an anomaly in her small town, and the disapproving glares from the locals cut deeper than any rusty engine she could fix. With every repair she completed, she felt the weight of judgment on her shoulders, both as a mechanic and a mother. Somewhere on the fringes of her mind, a dangerous thought lurked. What if she wasn't enough? The fear clenched her stomach. Desperation tightened its grip as she stared at the half-dismantled engine before her. Would the shop ever earn the respect it deserved? Or was she doomed to exist as the town's curiosity, a puzzle that didn't quite fit? Just then, her head snapped up at the sound of crunching gravel. A car had rolled to a stop outside, its hazard lights blinking frantically. Without thinking, Emma grabbed her toolbox and darted into the downpour. Standing in front of her, drenched and slightly disheveled, was Sam, a stranger whose rain-soaked smile sent an unexpected thrill through her. She hadn't realized before, but her heart was hustling, desperately wanting something more than routine. "Need help?" she offered, masking her rising inner tumult with businesslike bravado. Her palms felt clammy. Was this a bad idea? Did she even have time for this? The connection they forged during the repairs flickered under the thunderous sky, filled with laughter and shared stories, a fleeting escapade from reality. But between bantering over spark plugs and loosening bolts, the storm clouds looming over her steady resolve continued to darken. She glimpsed a glimmer of hope in his eyes, yet her fear whispered muted threats. What would he think of her once he understood the boundaries of her world? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, as summer approached and the blossoms brightened the street corners, Emma's world turned upside down. An official notice arrived about plans for a development project. Her home, her sanctuary, was on the demolition list. The gut-wrenching realization pierced through her, colliding with years of cherished memories that intertwined with every creak in the floorboards. Beside the simmering dread of losing everything her family had built, anger bubbled to the surface. How could they? Who were they to decide her worth? Could she really risk everything she had for a fading legacy? Wrestling these monumental choices sent her spiraling into turmoil. Should she fight back, or was the cost of battle far too high, potentially too high to allow anyone close? With Sam at her side, the stakes felt altered. His unwavering support painted a vision of hope. But what if the fight for justice meant losing the growing warmth between them? The thought was terrible, yet tantalizing. Love was a risk she never thought she could take. Clenching her fists, she faced the brawl ahead, feeling the walls of uncertainty close in. When betrayal finally struck from an unsuspecting source, Emma found herself on the brink, torn between steadfast resolve and the looming specter of her own fears. How could she press on without compromising who she was? As she stood in the eye of the storm, her heart raced with the reality that this was just the beginning of the chaos yet to unfold. The morning after the betrayal, Emma stood by the window, staring blankly at the rain puddling on the cracked pavement outside. Each droplet was a reminder of the uncertainty that dripped into her life. The development plans weren't just lines on a page. They threatened to erase her existence, and the thought twisted her stomach as if her insides were knotted. It was no longer just about fighting for her shop. It was about fighting for her identity, her sense of belonging in a world that questioned her every move. She pulled herself away from the window, the faint echo of Lucy's laughter drawing her into the present. Her daughter, wrapped up in a world of innocence, had no idea of the storm brewing beyond their doorstep. Emma took a deep breath, steeling herself against the ominous tide of emotions threatening to drown her. She needed to focus, to channel her anger and fear into something constructive. With determination brewing in her chest, she gathered her tools and headed for the garage. Today marked a new chapter, one defined not just by survival, but by empowerment. As she opened the shop door, the familiar scent of grease and motor oil enveloped her, a smell that had once felt oppressive but now ignited a fire within her. Maybe she'd start fixing cars not just to make a living, but to prove herself, to the townsfolk, to herself, and to Sam. As she worked on an old sedan, sparks flying from her welder, she felt alive, transcendent. Each weld was a declaration. She wasn't just a woman in a male-dominated field, she was a damn good mechanic. The thrill of creation coursed through her veins, each successful connection underscoring her worth and skill. In that moment, she learned that this shop was more than just a business. It was a testament to her spirit. But as the mechanical pieces fell into place, so did a newfound clarity about the fight ahead. She couldn't let fear dictate her future. Emma reached for her phone, realizing that turning to others was now a chance to gather support, to rally whoever believed in her. Her fingers flew over the screen as she typed messages to old friends, fellow business owners, and even some unexpected acquaintances who might stand alongside her in this battle. It was a risk. Vulnerability was exposing, but it was a risk she was willing to take. Later that evening, Sam arrived to find her amidst the chaos of gears and grime, his expression a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Emma surprised herself as she explained her plans, her voice steady and resolute. Their eyes locked for a moment, a silent understanding forming between them. She was ready to embrace both the storm ahead and whatever blossomed between them, should he choose to stay. "You're not just fixing engines, are you?" he asked, watching her intently. "No," she replied, her heart racing. "I'm fixing my life." Just as a renewed sense of hope settled in, a notification pinged on her phone, a scheduled town meeting to discuss the development plans. Fear and exhilaration surged through her. This was the moment to confront the injustices head-on. She could no longer stand by while others dictated her fate. As the dusk settled and uncertainty loomed in the fading light, Emma took a deep breath. She had chosen her path, and there would be no turning back now. The world may not have expected anything from her, but she was determined to redefine that narrative. Tomorrow would be the reckoning, the moment she stepped into the fray and confronted not just the community, but also her own fears. Would she find allies waiting by her side, or would she be met with resistance that echoed the distrust she had faced for so long? Only time would tell, and as she exited the garage, the weight of unanswered questions stirred within her. The next morning arrived with an unsettling stillness, as if the world paused, holding its breath in anticipation. Emma brewed her coffee with mechanical precision, her thoughts racing like the pistons she had just repaired. Each sip lingered on her tongue, a bitter reminder that courage and apprehension were intertwined. She glanced at Lucy, who was busy drawing on the kitchen table, oblivious to the heaviness in the air. As the minutes ticked away, Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Today wasn't just a town meeting. It was her chance to reclaim the narrative and face those who deemed her irrelevant. Was she truly ready for that level of confrontation? She finished her coffee, setting the mug down with an audible thud. This wasn't just caffeine, it was fuel. Dressed neatly yet practically, Emma ventured into the garage, one last glimpse at her sanctuary before facing the outside world. The familiar tools, the wrenches and hammers, felt like old friends nudging her forward, reminding her of the resilience she had built in that space. Emma drove to the town hall, the landscape shifting outside the window with every passing block. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows that heightened her sense of urgency. But as she parked, the flurry of fear and doubt shook her resolve. Questions surged. Would anyone listen? Would they dismiss her as they had before? The weight of those unmeetable expectations loomed. As she entered the building, an overwhelming buzz filled the air, a mix of voices debating, negotiating, and speculating. She spotted familiar faces, some filled with smug indifference and others with genuine curiosity. The town council sat at an elevated table, examining a series of plans that could wipe out her shop. Emma took an empty seat, her pulse quickening. She overheard snippets of conversation. They spoke of progress, change, yet under those terms lay her future being erased. A knot formed in her throat, and she fought the urge to retreat, to melt into the background. But she remembered the fire she felt while welding, the sense of belonging it ignited within her. That feeling couldn't dim now. The council called the meeting to order, and the floor opened for comments. Emma's heart raced as she raised her hand. The moment she stood felt monumental. She was not just another voice in the crowd. She was a woman who had something invaluable to say. As she approached the microphone, she noticed a ripple of surprise course through the room. She took a deep breath, envisioning each person before her, their skepticism and doubt, and transformed those images into fuel. "Hello, I'm Emma," she began, her voice steady despite the quivers in her stomach. "I'm a mechanic, a business owner, and a mother. This shop is where I've built my life, my identity, and it poses no threat to progress. It embodies it." The murmurs in the audience softened, curiosity lacing the air. The more she spoke, the clearer her conviction became. She was no longer just defending her shop. She was laying bare her story, her struggles, and the relentless fight for a space that mattered to her, not just for profit, but for purpose. As she pressed on, revealing her fears of losing not just a business but a legacy, she noticed Sam in the back, his eyes filled with encouragement. That connection became her grounding force. Confidence blossomed within her, transforming her words into a rallying cry. The council's expressions transformed from skepticism to contemplation. Emma's narrative connected with people in the room, invoking empathy she hadn't anticipated. Just as she concluded, a voice interrupted. "What does your shop really offer to the community?" A council member spat, skeptical and condescending. In that moment, Emma felt something snap within her, a surge of indignation. How dare he reduce her livelihood to a mere transaction? The assembly waited as she grappled with how to respond, her heart thrumming wildly. "Everything," she replied, her voice unwavering. "It offers skill, passion, and a place for anyone who feels invisible in a world that constantly changes. I could train others. I could create a space for individuals like me to thrive." As her words settled, she caught the eyes of several others in the audience, sympathetic nods and thoughtful expressions sparking an unexpected warmth in her chest. The confrontation had shifted from a defensive battle to a platform for her vision, a community-driven purpose. Emma stepped down, feeling the weight of 1,000 unsaid things lifted. Whether today marked a victory or a foreshadowing of struggles ahead, she had learned a fundamental truth. Her identity wasn't just about what she did, but how she chose to assert it. As the council members exchanged a few whispered words, Emma's pulse quickened again, signaling an impending decision that could change everything. Would her story resonate enough to forge alliances? Or would their judgment lead her back to solitude? Whatever the outcome, the battle had only just begun, and Emma was ready to face whatever might come her way next. The hum of conversation faded into a dull roar as Emma returned to her seat, her heart still racing with the adrenaline of confrontation. The council's whispered exchanges felt like a pendulum swinging between judgment and consideration. She had taken the plunge, but now she awaited the repercussions of her thirst for validation and recognition, her heart battling trepidation and hope. Lucy's face flickered in her mind, innocent and carefree, reminding her of the stakes attached to her words today. This was no longer merely about her shop. It was about crafting a future for Lucy, and for everyone like her. For a fleeting moment, Emma dared to imagine a world where her shop thrived, a beacon for aspiring mechanics, a place where individuals could seek refuge, learn skills, and forge their own identities. Then the town council returned to session, the chair nodding. "Thank you for your comments, Ms. Emma. We will take your input into consideration while making our upcoming decisions." Just like that, she was dismissed to the background, overshadowed by the machinery of politics. Nonetheless, Emma stood in the gap between despair and determination, realizing that her journey had only begun. Days became a blur as Emma clung to the fire ignited within her. Each morning in her workshop honed her skills further, and every evening she delved into research, business models, community development, even marketing strategies. She knew that if she had to prove the worth of her shop, she needed not just her voice but solid plans. The thought of Lucy visiting the shop someday, potentially side by side with her mother, filled her with both anxiety and pride. She sought assistance from Sam, who was eager to help. Together, they brainstormed ways to revitalize her business model, to shift from being just a mechanic shop to becoming a community hub for aspiring tradespeople. They envisioned hosting seminars, offering training courses, and even pooling resources for those looking to start their own ventures. With each new idea that materialized, Emma felt more empowered, her vision crystallizing. However, as they drafted their plans, doubts resurfaced, swirling around her mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. What if the council saw them as mere frivolities? Could her community really rally behind an idea that many might see as outlandish? The specter of failure loomed large, darkening her thoughts. "Emma," Sam said one evening as they pored over yet another proposal, "you have to show them what your shop represents, not just what it can offer. It's your story, your resilience." His earnest gaze urged her to believe in the power of her narrative. But the challenge was far from simple. She needed a strategy to embroider her journey into actionable change. That night, Emma laced her fingers around a pad and pen, her thoughts flowing freely as she began to map out her plan. She would recapture her narrative, but this time it would be fortified with data, testimonials, and a vision that could no longer be ignored. Each moment transformed her fear into clarity, her uncertainty into a palpable blueprint for growth. Just as she closed her notebook, a notification dinged on her phone, a message from the town council announcing a follow-up meeting to address community concerns and proposals. The urgency flooded through her being, igniting determination anew. But as she read further, her breath caught in her throat. Among the featured agenda items was a proposal that threatened not only her shop, but also the livelihoods of others who had spoken up during the previous meeting. The decision was to be made imminently, discretion shared with few, momentum building against her. The realization struck like a sledgehammer against glass. Emma had one chance to share her vision again and advocate for not only herself, but for those who stood with her. Would she have the courage to speak out once more? As the gravity of the situation settled in, Emma felt the weight of her journey transform. The time had come to face not just the council, but the deeper fears within her, to rally her community and defend a belief that remained unshakable. This battle was far from over. It demanded more than she had previously given. She had stories yet to tell, alliances to forge, and an indomitable spirit to unleash. In that defining moment, she resolved to amplify her voice, but the question lingered. Could she find the strength to confront an institution set against her? Emma's hands trembled slightly as she mulled over her notes, the weight of the impending meeting pressing heavily upon her. She had prepared meticulously, but the creeping doubt whispered incessantly in her ear. Would her plans resonate? Or would they be met with the same dismissiveness as before? Her resolve was stronger now, but the council loomed ahead, shrouded in uncertainty. She gazed out of the workshop window, taking in the familiar sights of Tennyson Lane, the faint whir of bikes being repaired, and the laughter of local children filtering in from the outside world. These sounds grounded her. Her shop was not just a building, it was an extension of herself, a reflection of her dreams, hopes, and the many individuals whose lives she wished to touch. But to protect it, she needed to navigate the intricate web of local politics and entrenched views. In the days leading to the meeting, Emma refined her pitch, weaving her personal narrative into data and statistics that illustrated the positive impact of her shop. She even reached out to former clients, inviting them to share their experiences, each story another thread in the fabric of her vision. Each interaction bolstered her confidence, but the darker questions remained, causing her to second-guess the value of her voice. What if they don't care about people's stories? She wondered aloud to Sam one evening, frustration bubbling over in her voice. They just want numbers, percentages. They want to cut costs, not invest in potential. True, Sam replied, leaning back against the tool bench. But what if those stories are the numbers that matter? You need to tell them how those decisions affect real lives, including Lucy's. Make it personal. The truth resonated within Emma. She had started this journey fueled by a love for mechanics, but it had evolved into a profound sense of duty, a duty toward a community that mirrored her own struggles. The point was not just her survival anymore, but a collective awakening. As the night before the meeting loomed, Emma found herself awake in the late hours, flooded with memories of her own challenges. She thought of her early years, the hardships, the resilience that had brought her here. The thought of Lucy, her bright, curious daughter, drove home the urgency. Emma would not let fear tarnish their futures. When the morning sun peeked through her shop's window, she felt different, emboldened. She donned her mechanic mode, a state of being where she could dissect problems as easily as she could repair an engine. The workshop was her temple, and today it would host her rebellion against doubt. In the council chamber, she found herself standing before the members, their faces a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Emma cleared her throat, anchoring herself in the gravity of the moment. Something within flickered, a warmth igniting as she acknowledged the council and the community gathered. "Thank you for the opportunity," she began, her voice steadier than she anticipated. She presented the data, the testimonials flowed out, each word carefully crafted. However, she rapidly sensed their rapt attention drift. With a swift pivot, Emma shifted her narrative towards the very fabric of her journey, how her struggles, echoing those of her neighbors, paved this venture. "I'm not just asking you to support a business, I'm asking you to support dreams, our dreams, where children can find their own paths without the weight of fear," she implored, emotions unfurling within her. "This isn't just about surviving, it's about building a future where we thrive together." As the murmurs echoed through the chamber, she adjusted her stance, facing down the opposition that had simmered beneath their polite expressions. The pivotal moment approached, bound tight between fear and resolution. Emma had given her all, but the council's reaction would ultimately determine the fate of her aspirations. Behind the layers of decorum, she sensed the undercurrents of resistance still lurking just beneath her words. Would they accept her vision, or would it be deemed yet another impractical ideal to be quashed? In that moment of charged silence, a council member raised a hand. The air thickened with expectation, each heart beating as one to discern the impending verdict. Emma's breath caught, teetering on the brink of hope and dread. There was no turning back now. Would her leap of faith shatter constraints, or would it plunge her further into the depths of opposition? Emma stood ready to confront both the council and her deepest fears. Could she emerge unscathed, her story reshaping the tide of their decision? A low murmur filled the council chamber. Emma's heart raced as the member's raised hand cast a cloud of uncertainty. Her pulse quickened with the realization that she had laid everything on the line. She had exposed the very essence of her dreams and struggles, unraveling her tightly bound emotions in front of a room full of skeptics. It was too late to retract her words. All she could do was endure the silence that had suddenly engulfed her. "Please proceed," the council member said, voice steady as he gestured for her to continue. Relief washed over Emma briefly, allowing her to gather her scattered thoughts. She was far from finished, and a flicker of determination ignited within her. "Thank you," she replied, her voice gaining a new strength. "I understand that every decision you make must be backed by sound reasoning, but I want to underline why this is not merely a business proposition." She leaned forward, drawing herself into the moment. "My workshop isn't supported by spreadsheets alone. It thrives through human connection, compassion, and resilience." Several council members exchanged glances, intrigue and uncertainty dancing in their expressions. Emma's confidence swelled. She felt crucial energy coursing through her veins, propelling her forward. It was almost intoxicating. "Think of Lucy," she continued, "the girl down the street who learned to fix bikes just like I did. Last summer, we rebuilt an old clunker together, and in that moment, she saw herself in charge of her fate. That's the power of our dreams. When we nurture them, they grow. By investing in my shop, you're cultivating a garden of potential within this community." A voice from the back interrupted, thick with skepticism. "But how can you ensure that this investment won't end in failure like other ventures? We need assurances." Emma recognized the voice. An old adversary, Mr. Jenkins, a council member known for his unwavering practicality and apparent disdain for idealism. Emma took a breath, swallowing her initial reaction of frustration. She could feel the battle within her, the urge to defend her vision against the clanging rhetoric of practicality. "Failure is a part of every startup's journey," she countered, choosing her words carefully. "But when every setback is a lesson learned, when we pivot instead of giving up, that's where resilience shines through. Yes, the past has its shadows, but look at what we've built since then. a community workshop that doubles as a gathering point for growth and support. The atmosphere shifted, her fervor compelling the council members to lean in slightly, considering her words. Emma pressed on, discussing the quantifiable metrics she had gathered: a steady increase in community engagement, positive impacts on local youth, and even the financial projections that illustrated potential profitability. These were numbers she wanted them to think about, but they were also seeds she hoped would be planted within each council member's mind. As she concluded her presentation, she searched for faces in the audience, looking for an ally in the battle she was waging. But instead, she saw uncertainty etched on their features. Emma sensed that the decision was teetering on a precarious ledge, and only time would tell whether she would be caught or fall. "Thank you for your time," she said, allowing a moment of quiet reflection to settle heavily in the air. She remained standing, resolute, waiting for the council's questions or perhaps their judgment. But instead, Mr. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably in his chair, and the silence stretched on. It took a moment before another member quietly resumed their own notes, shaking off the thickness of the atmosphere. Would her leap of faith shatter constraints or plunge deeper into shadows? The tension between hope and dread tightened its grip. Emma believed she had planted the seeds of change, but would they take root? The clock ticked slowly as Emma's gaze swept across the chamber, searching for a spark, a glimmer of belief. There was no turning back now, and with every second that passed, uncertainty reigned supreme. Then, with a sudden jolt, another member spoke up, their voice cutting through the tension with a question that could either lift Emma higher or unravel everything she had fought for. Would they echo her vision or fortify her doubts? Emma stood, her heartbeat thundering in her ears, as she faced the council member whose question hung in the air like a delicate thread. The room pulsed with anticipation, emotions flowing freely as she prepared for whatever inquiry might further interrogate her resolve. "We appreciate your insights, but could you clarify your contingency plans for unforeseen obstacles?" The council's inquiries felt like a gauntlet thrown at her feet, demanding she sprint or stumble. She cleared her throat, aware that the response could either solidify her vision or fracture it. "Absolutely," she began, her mind racing through various scenarios. "In the past year, we've faced challenges, equipment failures, underwhelming attendance, but each time we adapted." Emma visualized the late nights spent troubleshooting problems, the fierce discussions with volunteers who believed in her mission. "We learned to collaborate more effectively, leveraging community paths to keep the momentum alive." A soft murmuring rose from the council. Were they receptive, or merely engaging in polite skepticism? Emma continued, fueled by a newfound intensity, drawing on her personal narrative. As with any venture, the unexpected demands agile thinking and resilience. We've created a community feedback mechanism, one that ensures our growth aligns with the needs of everyone involved. I'm committed to iterative planning. Each word throbbed with sincerity. Her past failures a scaffolding upon which she laid her expectations for the future. Several council members jotted down notes, perhaps recognizing the structured reasoning she strung together like pearls, each linking back to her heartfelt mission. Yet there still remained that doubt, the specter of failure lingering in the ether. "Emma," chimed another voice, warm yet probing, "it's important to recognize that your passion is commendable, but how will you manage financial risks?" The question stung as her mind spiraled momentarily. Financial management had been her Achilles' heel. Figures danced like ghosts, eluding her grasp. "I've been fortunate to work alongside mentors who specialize in fiscal strategies," she replied, a newfound determination filtering into her tone. "Through this collaboration, we're developing a sustainable budget. I can present forecasts that reveal not only what we hope to achieve, but also outline worst-case scenarios and mitigation strategies, emphasizing transparency." As her words rolled off her tongue, an ember of confidence warmed her inside. She could see that even Mr. Jenkins, the most critical member, had creased his brow slightly, as if considering her argument anew. Was this the break she needed? But her thoughts were screaming, the fear lurking beneath the surface rearing its head. What if this plan crumbled like dust in her hands? Self-doubt gnawed at her. Emma clutched the edges of the podium, needing something solid to ground her, as she braced herself for the consequences of their judgment. "The truth is," she said, nearly whispering, The journey is filled with uncertainty, but it's also about collective responsibility. If we take this leap together, there's hope we can cultivate something extraordinary. It's more than a workshop, it's the embodiment of resilience. Emma's heart pounded loudly as she finished, her voice echoing slightly in the still air. She stood there, a blend of exhaustion and electricity coursing through her body, waiting for their decision, their nod, or a polite retreat. Then, Mr. Jenkins leaned forward, scrutinizing her, weighing her earnest words like a scale tipping toward hope or despair. His question lingered unasked, filling the space with a pregnant pause. What lay beneath his gaze? Would he challenge her resolve or finally offer the validation she desperately sought? At that moment, she realized the true risk was not external but internal. It was the chance to believe in herself, to stand as both an idealist and a realist, to merge her dreams with practical guidance. As the council members exchanged glances, the silence grew more pronounced. What choice would they make that might change her life forever? Emma held her breath, knowing that every decision in this chamber could either forge her destiny or spiral her into the shadows of disappointment. Then, in the midst of stark silence, the air crackled, and the question she desperately hoped for hovered just out of reach. Would she embrace the possibility of success or confront the agony of rejection? The tipping point was near, and Emma found herself on the edge of revelation, teetering precariously between potential triumph and heart-wrenching defeat. Emma's breath trembled as Mr. Jenkins finally broke the silence, his voice slicing through the tension like a knife. If we're to proceed, you accept full responsibility for the financial risks involved, yes? His words ignited a flame within her, a confluence of anxiety and resolve. She nodded, feeling the surge of her own determination. Yes, I understand the gravity. I accept that responsibility completely. Her statement hung in the air, fortifying her commitment to the council and herself. Deep down, she knew this was not the end of her journey, but merely a critical juncture. Could she truly navigate the financial turbulence ahead? The prospect terrified her, yet the fear became fuel, propelling her forward. Once the meeting adjourned, Emma stepped out into the corridor, her mind a whirlwind. This was the formality of approval, yet a new layer of accountability had been forged. She had coupled her aspirations with the weight of fiscal realities, and now the stakes were higher than ever. As she wove through the bustling crowd of the building, the true challenge began to crystallize. Her mentors had armed her with strategies, yet she sensed there would be moments of isolation as she laid the groundwork for what was to come. Each step echoed the feeling of someone precariously balancing on a tightrope. One misstep could send her tumbling into chaos. In her office, the gentle hum of the air conditioner offered a stark contrast to the swirling doubts in her mind. She sat at her desk, but the quiet stillness felt deafening. Her thoughts spiraled into financial forecasts, budget sheets, and estimates. She had never felt so acutely aware of her limitations. Was she capable enough? Did she possess the fortitude to master the numbers? As Emma typed, she struggled with each figure, the columns and rows intertwining into an abstract puzzle. It felt as if the data were mocking her, daring her to confront her ineptitude. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted her spiral of despair. It was Sasha, her closest ally and a financial analyst with a knack for demystifying complex numbers. Emma invited her in, grateful for the presence of someone who understood the intricacies of this new challenge. "Hey, I caught wind of the council meeting," Sasha said with a bright smile, her energy infectious. "You did well, but I know you're feeling overwhelmed. Want to go over the financials together?" A wave of relief washed over Emma, gratitude blooming within her. "Yes, please. I feel like I'm drowning in spreadsheets." They sat across from each other, and Sasha blinked away the seriousness that encapsulated the room. "Let's break this down," she suggested, her tone reassuring. As they navigated through the complexities, Emma gradually shed the shroud of inadequacy that cloaked her. Sasha's questions prompted Emma to think critically, to reflect on strategies that might work not only theoretically, but practically. With each conversation, a new layer of confidence began to unfurl. Decisions transformed from burdens into opportunities for creative problem-solving. Hours melted away as they collaborated, transforming Emma's fear into a sense of empowerment. By the time Sasha left, something had shifted. Emma could see beyond the numbers constraining walls. She envisioned a roadmap, each milestone strategically placed to lead them towards sustainability. The evening sky darkened, and Emma squinted at the clock, baffled by how time had slipped away. A new realization dawned upon her. This wasn't about simply managing risks, but about evolving. Each challenge presented an invitation to build resilience, to grow not only as a professional, but as a person. With renewed determination, she leaned back in her chair, the fading sunlight illuminating her office. She had begun to untangle the threads of fear, threading them into a tapestry of potential. However, a nagging thought lingered. What if setbacks challenged her newfound momentum? What if she stumbled again when she least expected it? With this uncertainty prickling at the edges of her optimism, Emma picked up her pen and jotted down a new reminder to herself. Embrace the inevitable setbacks. They are but detours in the landscape of growth. With her resolve solidified, she closed her notebook, feeling energized. But suddenly, the silence of the office was punctuated by an unexpected message alert on her phone. As she glanced at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. There it was, a message that could either propel her forward or plunge her into turmoil. An urgent proposal from a potential investor who had questions about the future of her project. Would this be the opportunity that defined her journey? Emma's heart raced as she felt the gravity of the moment draw her in. Emma stared at her phone, the proposal looming larger than life. The moment felt electric, but also precarious. Every instinct told her this could be the tipping point in her project, a moment since she had accepted her responsibilities at the council. Yet despite the thrill, doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. What if she mismanaged this investment? What if her plans collapsed under scrutiny? She inhaled deeply, pushing the tumult aside. This opportunity could propel her endeavors into uncharted territory, and it was her moment to seize. She quickly went over the details of the message. The investor wanted a meeting first thing in the morning. Time was not on her side. Emma grabbed her notebook and began outlining key points she needed to address. This wasn't just a chance to secure funding. It was an opportunity to showcase her growth, her vision, and her fortitude. The weight of her aspirations pressed firmly on her shoulders, but with it came a new clarity. She was not merely an individual chasing a dream. She was a force ready to engage with the world on her terms. The clock ticked steadily, and as night enveloped the city, Emma transformed her anxiety into productive energy. She crafted a presentation filled with forecasts, floor plans, and potential returns on investment, each slide meticulously designed to convey confidence and capability. Yet even as her fingers danced across the keyboard, Emma couldn't shake the lingering question. Could she genuinely sell her vision? Once completed, she stepped away from the computer, trying to find a moment of stillness. The shadow of doubt lurked, whispering that she might not be enough, that the heights she sought were out of reach. But deep within her, she knew she had come too far to entertain such thoughts. Each struggle, each lap around the tightrope had woven a resilience into her being. The prospect of the meeting filled her with urgency. She could feel the pressure of expectations wrapping around her like a tight band. Yet this challenge beckoned her to confront not just the investor, but the very limitations she had feared for so long. Emma replayed her strategies in her mind, not just the numbers, but the narrative behind them. She gathered her research, anticipating the inquiries that would undoubtedly arise. The investor would want to know not just about profits, but about her passion, her commitment, and her vision for the project's future. Just as she climbed into bed, a thought struck her. She had worked tirelessly to articulate her dream, but had she truly connected with its deeper meaning? Emma resolved to dive into that aspect overnight. She needed to anchor her presentation in the passion that had inspired her journey in the first place. As she closed her eyes, her mind swirled, a mosaic of dreams and calculations intertwined. Would she be able to communicate that passion clearly, under the pressure of scrutiny? Would the investor see her as a leader deserving of their support? Morning arrived before she felt ready, the light spilling across her office as she went through her notes one last time. She wore her resolve like armor, prepared to expose her vulnerabilities, but only if accompanied by the tenacity forged through her challenges. With one last glance at her outline, Emma took a deep breath, heart pounding in her chest. She was at the precipice, but what lay beyond? As she navigated her way to the meeting, the looming uncertainty danced before her. Could this moment be the breakthrough she so desperately sought? The doors of the boardroom loomed large, and behind them her future awaited. Emma hesitated, the weight of the moment crashing upon her. Would she rise to the occasion or become a shadow of her potential? Emma stood at the boardroom door, her heart thrumming in her chest like a racehorse. This meeting could redefine everything for her, not just for her shop, but for her future. Over the past months, she had faced relentless challenges and fought tirelessly for recognition. But now, the culmination of her efforts manifested in an investor's interest. She had transformed doubt into determination, and today she was ready to seize the moment. As she entered the room, the air was thick with expectation. The investors, sharp and attentive, regarded her with a mix of scrutiny and interest. The sleek table held various documents and a projector already set up, ready to showcase the presentation she had toiled over. She offered a confident smile, aligning her thoughts with her unwavering resolve. This was not just a presentation of numbers. It was the unveiling of her journey, a testament to her resilience. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today," Emma began, her voice steady. As she moved through her slides, she conveyed the passion that fueled her efforts. The statistics were formidable, but she wove them into a narrative that resonated with each member of the room. "My shop represents more than mechanical repairs. It embodies hope for our community, a place where dreams can take shape." The investors leaned in, intrigued by her storytelling. Emma shared the critical moments of her journey, the countless late nights, her commitment to teaching local youths, and how each challenge had fortified her resolve. Her narrative moved beyond financial data. It was a call to action. "Every dollar you invest is not just money in a business. It's an investment in resilience and empowerment for countless aspiring artisans," she asserted. Their expressions shifted as they absorbed her words, and she sensed a change in the atmosphere. A glimmer of recognition sparkled in their eyes. This was not only a business opportunity, but a chance to foster change. She drew her presentation to a close, knowing she had painted a vivid picture, congruent with her aspirations. A moment of silence hung in the air as she finished. This was the pinnacle of her transformation. She was not the uncertain mechanic of her past, but a force with a voice commanding respect. "Emma," the lead investor spoke, his tone shifting to one of curiosity. "What are the steps you envision for the next phase, assuming we do partner?" The question lit a fire within her. "I envision a workshop that serves as a training ground, not just for fixing cars, but for cultivating skills. I want to host seminars and workshops, not just for profit, but to offer a platform for others to express themselves and find their path." Emma's confidence was unmistakable as she outlined her actionable plans, her clarity further solidified by the bond she had formed with her community. As she painted the future she wanted to create, a palpable excitement filled the boardroom. Each idea was met with nods of appreciation, each plan demonstrating her thorough understanding of the mechanics behind both business and community dynamics. She could almost feel the weight of their skepticism dissipating, replaced by an eagerness to engage with her vision. Once she had finished, the initial tension morphed into a collective spirit of hope, a synergy she had long yearned for. The investors exchanged glances, deliberating in hushed tones, and her heart swelled with anticipation. Finally, the lead investor turned to her, a smile breaking across his face. "Your passion is infectious, Emma. We'd love to partner with you and help you launch this next phase. There are conditions, of course, but we're on board." A rush of relief washed over her as she absorbed the words. She had done it. She had conquered the uncertainties that once swelled within her and transformed them into powerful action. Her hard work, dedication, and the courage to seize the moment had unwaveringly paid off. As she stepped out of the boardroom, the sunlight poured over her like a warm embrace. Emma felt the vigor of newfound possibilities surrounding her. She was no longer simply fighting for her business. She had emerged as a changemaker within her community. With Lucy as her guiding star, Emma resolved to cultivate a model of hope, not just for herself and her shop, but for all those who came through her doors. What had begun as a struggle against judgment morphed into a leadership opportunity that promised growth. Emma knew that this was just the beginning of a greater journey, one that resonated with purpose, empowerment, and community. She glanced back at the shop as she left, the familiar scent of grease and motor oil flooding her senses once more. It was no longer just a garage. It was her legacy, a place rooted in resilience and evolution. Emma had redefined her narrative, transforming from an uncertain mechanic to a recognized leader. With clarity of purpose, she took a deep breath, ready for the exciting chapter that lay ahead. The struggles had shaped her, but they had also birthed a profound achievement. She had found her worth. Now she was determined to light the way for others who, like her, once felt unseen. Emma had proven that with courage anyone can carve out their path, and her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance. And as she continued forward, she knew she would never stop fighting, not just for her dreams, but for those of the community she adored. This was her moment, and she was ready to embrace every ounce of it. Don't wait even one more second to share this incredible story of transformation. You need to subscribe now for exclusive emotional stories to inspire your journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for resilience and empowerment. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's journey below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this inspiring conclusion.